In this lesson, we're going to use a solubility curve to determine the solubilities of substances at different temperatures. This chart shows us the solubility of a variety of solutes in 100 grams of water at a variety of temperatures. Notice that each compound has its own unique solubility curve. When we talked about the solubility rules previously, we simply determined whether something was soluble in water or not. However, now we need to acknowledge that substances have a limit of solubility. Some substances are more soluble than others in water. Let's look at an example. How much NaNO3 can dissolve in 100 grams of water at 10 degrees Celsius? First, we're going to find NaNO3 on the graph, and we see that we have this dark red line representing it. Next, we look at the temperature of 10 degrees, and when we go up to that line, we see that we have 80 grams of NaNO3 that will dissolve in 100 grams of water at 10 degrees Celsius. How much NaCl can dissolve in 100 grams of water at 10 degrees Celsius? We're looking at the same amount of water and the same temperature, but we're looking at a different compound. We identify its location on the curve, represented by the light blue line. We're still at 10 degrees Celsius, and so we follow the line up and we see that about 34 grams of NaCl will dissolve in 100 grams of water at 10 degrees Celsius. How much NaCl can dissolve in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius? We again identify the location of the NaCl on our curve, look for 40 degrees and go up to the light blue line, and we see that 36 grams of NaCl can dissolve in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius. We can read information directly from the graph when we're dealing with exactly 100 grams of water. However, we also need to understand how we deal with values that are less than or greater than 100 grams of water. How much NaCl can dissolve in 50 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius? The key here is that we have 50 grams of water, although the curve is given based on 100 grams of water. We are still looking at NaCl at 40 degrees Celsius, which we looked at in a previous question, where we found that 36 grams of NaCl would dissolve in 100 grams of water. To solve for the amount that will dissolve in 50 grams of water, we can set up a ratio. And we see that X grams of NaCl will dissolve in 50 grams of water, because the proportion is going to be exactly the same no matter what the mass of water is. And when we solve the problem, we find that X is equal to 18 grams of NaCl will dissolve in 50 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius. How much NaCl can dissolve in 200 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius? As before, we are looking at NaCl at 40 degrees Celsius, only this time we're looking at 200 grams of water. We know that 36 grams of NaCl will dissolve in 100 grams of water, but we have 200 grams of water, so we need to set up a proportion. And we find that we have X grams of NaCl dissolving in 200 grams of water. When we solve that, we get that X equals 72 grams of NaCl, and this is the amount that will dissolve in 200 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius.